Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have esteemed astrologer, cosmologist and astral magician Michael Offek discussing the importance of electional astrology in the creation of talismans with a very interesting chart example. This is an extracted part of our longer conversation on astrological magic, so if you would like to see the extended version, please see the previous video on our channel. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
I differentiate or look at election in a hierarchy from the universal to the specific. So there's, for instance, when a planet is in a sign where it has essential dignity, the whole time he is in that sign is a good time to work with him in a sense. It doesn't even matter from that universal perspective. It doesn't even matter if it's now rising or setting or anywhere. If it's there, it's time to draw on it or connect to it as it amplifies its signal at that time or so. But then when you reach the angles, which is the alignment of that planet, for instance, with an angle, let's say either the 1st or the 10th, which are the strongest, then you align it with the Earth and with your location. So you have sort of a double, so you have that, not only the potency of the planet being in its own sign or exaltation, but also in the foreground of that time, so sort of dominating that moment and channeling.
Again, not only have you got the potency of the planet domicile, you've got that, again, that angularity, that extra oomph and that extra power. And if you can get those two together, it's going to make a huge statement, it seems.
Yes. So then it aligns with the Earth in a sense, that moment. So it's in the foreground. It's what is rising or what culminates at that moment.
Right.
So in a sense, you can say its music is now being played in the radio at that moment. So it's more specific to that window of time. And in the tradition, there is also, if we get to the more specific, there is also house-based elections. So the more simple elections are planets and angles. That's simplifying it, of course, or stars or signs.
Right.
But then you also have house-based, which is a little bit like reverse engineering a horror question. Instead of just saying, is she and I going to date, or are we going to be lovers or something? So you find the answer you'd like. For instance, the planet ruling the 1st house is applying by a trine to the planet ruling the 7th house, and they're both mutual reception. Okay.
Right.
And then you do, a talisman or a petition or a sort of a magical ritual in that moment. That's a house-based talisman. So you have even Tabit Ibn Korah has in his on images, he has a lot of these house-based talismans. For instance, if you want to gain the the love of a king or the respect of a king, so take the ruler of the 10th and put it on the 1st. Of course, dignified and everything. Or if you want the king to bring you money, take the ruler of the 10th and put it in the 2nd house.
Right.
Or, you can take it from there. This is the house-based elections, which are one of the most complex of magical election. And maybe the most complex of all is the personal elections, which are based on your natal chart. Because there's always many things happening at the same time, and it's a kind of an alignment between a good universal election and how it is personalized by its placement on a personal degree. So in a sense, if you have an alignment of a certain planet very dignified on the MC, and that MC falls on your ascendant degree, that's very specific for you. It's very powerful for your child.
But you conversely, if you get to a point where there's discord or disconnect with the universal specific, maybe looking at changing that as well on the inverse.
Yes, well, there are sort of disagreements of what is more important. My experience is that the alignment with your chart would be more important in general. But if you do a universal election, even without taking how it affects your chart into consideration, you would still get, a very powerful talisman. But the more it is specifically, fashioned to your chart, the more it will strum your strings. If we take again,
I love that. The more that should be a quote in itself. The more it strums your strings.
And if you look at ancient, electional rules pertaining to individuals, so in a sense, they for instance, one of the rules is taking the ascendant degree. At the day that you would like, that there is an occurrence, or if it's financial matters, then you take the second, or etc. through the topics of the houses in your chart. That's another way to do it. So if it's career things and you want to put maybe, the sign of the MC rising, for instance, your sign of the MC. So that's the more complicated one. Now, the most basic alignment, and this is really, really basic stuff. Yes, it becomes unbelievably complex if you go deeper into electional rules and the moon, etc. But really, in simple terms, we want to have an alignment between a planet, the Earth, and the moon. If we have these three, then we really have the chains connected to each other, because the moon is a translator from the upper realms to the sublunar realms. So he's a translator. He's the vessel by which the astral energy flows into the earth. So if you have the three of them, then you have a very powerful chain. So you want to have the planet in a good, powerful, essential, and accidental dignity.
Yeah.
You want to have the lunar power connected to the planetary power, and you can also take into consideration the phase, the contact of the moon to that planet, the essential and accidental dignity of the moon, plus what I call association, which is sort of the analogical symbolic aspect.
So for maybe, again, those who are maybe not initiated, why could you explain the importance of the lunar power, maybe in more depth? Why, again, in terms of condition aspect, why is that such an important factor?
Well, the moon is the fastest heavenly body and the closest to the Earth. And it's in a sort of a unique position as a mediator between everything that comes, from around the Earth, and because it's connected to the natural cycle, the ebbs and flow of the sea, in the Hermetic cosmology, they would say that he's regulating the elements, because the elements are below the moon in the ancient cosmology. So he's sort of the doorkeeper, and because the moon in its essence is something that takes the impression from the outside, as he lacks the light of its own, it reflects the light of the sun. So it is sort of looked at as a shapeless substance that takes the shape of everything it comes in contact with, and like a mother or like a womb is impregnated by these powers and carries them, and sort of shows how it is embodied in matter, sort of, reflects how, astrological energies are embodied or, put, because the moon also has a lot of association with the body in ancient astrology. So it's sort of embodying these powers and translating them to the world of phenomena. And I think it's, the lunar aspect in every one of us is also that receptacle, where we put our mind aside and we sort of become that lunar receptacle. This is where we can sort of get the impressions without the distractions, sort of. Just become that well, you understand.
Yeah.
So the moon is unbelievably important in any election. And of course, in event charts and horary charts, and of course also in natal charts. But for instance, in horary chart, moon not only is a co-significator of the current, he's also the flow of the question, in a sense. Sort of how it is and where it's going through. It shows you the dynamic of the unfoldment of the question or the event. So you'd like to have the moon either conjunct or having a good aspect, and also you would like to have the moon without any disturbance from other planets or malefic
or
contacts or this kind of thing. So
and as you said, it is the fastest moving body, like pulling up that picture and telling the story in a sense. And I think that's a wonderful description.
Yes, it's kind of it's really a big transmitter, it's a big medium that, like a satellite dish, when you put it on a certain planet, it takes its emanation and draws it to it. It's kind of magnetic in that sense. It draws it to it and sort of converts it into the world of the elements to a degree.
I love that.
Of course, you can bypass, to a degree, you can bypass the moon and put the planet on an angle, and and there are also rules if the moon is problematic and you have to do it at that time. So you want to, put the moon aside as far as possible. Put him in the 12th house if it's
right.
But let's say the most ideal alignment, in basic terms, is the planet, the moon, and the Earth.
Right.
So if you get the three of them, that's a really, really good start. So here I put it simply, also in a different way. You want to have the planets, what the ancient call in the chariots, which of course it's essential dignity, but it can also be, it's triplicity terms, phase or decan, etc. The more, the better. And then you have the lunar alignment. So that needs to be connected to the planet, either by body aspect or rulership. And so it could be both,
Right.
So if you can't have the moon in connection to that planet, you can put it in the sign of the planet that you're looking, to make the talisman.
It becomes a dispositor. Yeah.
Yeah, because it also amplifies its signification through that sign.
Right.
And the Earth, of course, is the alignment of either the angles or the good houses, or an aspect to an angle from a good house, either the 11th, the 5th, the 9th, although his circadian house is also trining the ascendant, etc. And the planetary day and hour. And the system of planetary hours, it's pretty easy to, it's in every software.
Oh yeah.
Every sun, I don't know if I'll go into that. That might take a little bit, but we have planetary days of the week, right? So every sunrise, it starts the hour of that planetary ruler of that day.
Right.
So the sunrise of Sunday is the first hour is the hour of the sun, and then you go by Chaldean order. And the measure of the hour is not 60 minutes. It depends on the length of the from sunrise to sunset,
right?
Or the planetary hours of the day, and from sunset to sunrise.
Right.
So it's in proportion to the amount of daylight, etc. So that's also an important factor, but I would put it as the least important in my own approach. Some people put it higher.
So go through the main points first, and then if that seems to coincide, then all the better, but not as prominent.
You can make compromises with the hour and the day, in my experience. Although if you have a ruler of the hour which is an antagonist of that planet, then but if it's a friendly planet to that planet, and he's also situated well, that can substitute if you have a really good election. Otherwise, then that could be a compromise. So this is the three of them. Let's say we're choosing for Jupiter. So you want to protect Jupiter, the moon, and the Earth, which is the rising sign or the MC or whatever, from accidental afflictions. So, for instance, from squares or positions from Saturn and Mars. I also put the outer planets as potentially can have a malefic effect to them, sometimes more, sometimes less, also depending on other things. And the sun could be, if it's in the combust or these kinds of accidental affliction, that can also be a problem. So you want to protect the planet, the moon, and the angle from accidental afflictions. And then you want to and these are other potential afflictions, slow moving, retrograde, conjunct a malefic star, being in a bad house, etc., etc. So these are some of the things you would
out of consideration, out of sect, like you say, cadent, out of sign, all those things. Yeah.
Although some of them are really not that important. For instance, sect. This doesn't seem to be that important, although it's a plus. It's a plus. If the planet is also in its own sect, it's a plus. But combust is a problem. Slow moving or retrograde is a problem. Again, depending of your intention from the talisman too. Yeah.
I won't be doing any Mercury work today.
Yeah, for instance, you wouldn't do a talisman for today, probably. So this is an example of an election from my last astrological magic course. And we did a talisman together for this election.
Mm.
This was on the 27th of April. And here you have an alignment of, you have Jupiter in Pisces
Mm.
on the 27th. It's really the 28th degree, right? But it's pretty close to being in the degree, which is also the exaltation degree of Venus, which is interesting. Jupiter and the moon is applying to Jupiter on the midheaven. It's in the hour of Jupiter and the day of Venus.
That's a beautiful connection.
Sorry, the day
so
of
you've
Mercury.
got the applying, the chart ruler and coming together. And again, the importance of the angles there. That looks beautiful to me.
Yeah, it was a really really powerful moment because it was a combo of many planets. It wasn't only Jupiter, but you also had Venus, exalted in Pisces, also conjoining Jupiter. And Jupiter and the moon are also both rulers of the rising sign. Moon by domicile and Jupiter by exaltation.
Right.
So they both, having a rulership of the rising sign. Both are aligned with the MC. Both are conjoined. And you can see also other things.
Is that Mercury there at 0 Gemini, or is that I'm trying to see with my eyes?
No, he's in the 27th degree of Taurus.
Oh, 27. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the part.
Yeah. Interestingly, he's also sextiling Jupiter. But Venus is the ruler of Taurus, so he's also the ruler of the Sun, the ruler of Mercury in that in this chart. And of course, not everything is ideal. It never is.
Sure. I mean, you've got Mars,
some people
outset Malefic in the mix, but again, Venus separating. I mean, 19 and then 23 degrees, so moving away. But again, that's an important point. You're never going to get the most perfect election or auspicious time. You have to have some sort of negotiation, I think, with the cosmos.
When you start playing with this, you would see that you can go, you can step year by year by year by year, and you won't get a good Venus in Taurus, ideal election, or Venus in this, because there's always something that, that potentially can block the energy or something.
Especially if you're working with the slower moving planets. I mean, the time it would take to do, you just got to do the best you can, I guess.
So you can't be a perfectionist, but you can, and this is my approach at least, that it's much more important to have that psychic connection. Psychic, I mean the soul connection, the noetic and psychic connection with the planet. And because in a sense, you go into a garden and you want to pick up a certain fruit. You don't want to pick up every fruit that is growing there. So, you align with the intended signification. You align with the intended power. So, you don't need to worry about, every other planet in every other house. It's the election is opening the channel, opening the portal, or in a sense to access the planetary energy. So of course you want to aspire to find the best election you can, but there's always a compromise, and we have to work with what we if you're looking for ideal elections, you can wait a couple of years sometimes to have. So part of the practice is also cleaning the signal, in a sense, through what you focus on. Because if you play that music strong enough and connected enough, then all the other, distractions, they're not part of that. It's
Melt
not
away.
what you channel, in a sense. So this is an example of the talisman we made.
Wonderful.
And also in this, course, we will make a talisman together in the part 2 of the course.
Yeah, wonderful.
So this is a hands-on kind of course,
I love it.
And what I showed you now in the election part was really, I made this, it becomes much, much, much more complex if you go on to the details of, every significator and, and the rules.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing all this. It's absolutely amazing. I love it.
You're welcome.
So speaking of the course, so we're coming up now on we've changed. So we're coming up now. The part 1 of Magic Astrology is going to be on the 29th of January from 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, I believe that we've changed. But of course, yes, for everybody watching, we'll put a link below this video in the description. And of course, we'll have extra pop-ups too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.